Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. Today we are talking about AncestryDNA. Specifically, we're going to be talking about contacting and collaborating with all of those cousin matches. Joining me today is Anna Swayne, the AncestryDNA Program Manager. Thanks for being here, Anna.
Thank you, Crista. It's always a pleasure.
So we're going to just get things kicked off with a little story from Anna. Anna's, of course, not just the AncestryDNA Program Manager. She's also an AncestryDNA customer, and she's had some really cool experiences. And so I've just asked her to share one of those experiences with you today, just as a kind of a case study or an example to get your minds working before we dive into some of the do's and don'ts.
Thank you, Crista. Well, as we look at DNA results and we get excited about the possibilities and the power behind DNA, I recently had a second cousin match with my father's DNA results. And before I even had a chance to look at it, this second cousin, reached out to me. He sent me a message. So he went into the match, looked at the tree that I had linked to my dad's DNA results, and immediately found the possibility where the connection was. Since he didn't have a tree online yet linked to his DNA results, I couldn't see any of his tree information, but he immediately went into mine, looked at the surnames that we had in common, and dug in a little bit, and then contacted me, reached out to me, sent me a really quick message saying, hey, I see that we're second cousins. I looked at your tree, and I think I know where we're connected. I don't have a tree online yet. Still working on it. In fact, I'm not sure exactly how to do that yet. But I have this and this research. Do you want to connect? And immediately I was so grateful that he took the extra time to look at my tree, see where the connection was, and then let me know what research he had so that I could expect what kind of connection we could make. And then in the back and forth messaging that we did do, he had pictures and journal entries and stories of my family that I had just to give you an example. So he and my father share great grandparents, and so their grandmothers were sisters, and for some reason he had stuff that was passed on through his grandmother's line that my grandmother didn't pass on. Or maybe she didn't have, right? She didn't have it. And so he was able to let us know what the great-grandparents' mother's name was, where we had been stuck. We knew her name was Sarah, but we didn't know her last name, and we didn't have marriage information. Mm-hmm. So it was all speculation, and he was able to give that to us because he reached out, and I'm forever grateful, and hopefully I can do that for somebody else.
Very cool. I love that. And I love the thing that I really love about working with Anna is that I get to hear stories from her like this all day, every day, just about, not just from her own research, but from you, from those of you who are making some of these connections and making some of these discoveries in your tree. And it's really exciting. And so my goal today and the time that we have together is just to give you some additional tools or ideas or resources to make some of those same discoveries for yourself. So thank you for sharing that story, Anna. And I'll let you just pipe in as you need to as we go here. But I want to talk about the three different kinds of trees, or the three status levels, I guess you could call it, of trees that are available online. The first group of people that you're going to see in your tree matches are those who have public trees. Now, these trees could be small trees or big trees, and the size doesn't matter. Like, can I say that? Like, it just doesn't. I had a cousin match who had 3 people in his tree. Came up as a second cousin match to my mom. And when I first saw it, I did a little internal roll of the eyes. But after looking at that tree with 3 people in it, himself, his father, and his grandfather, I was able to do a few quick lookups on his grandfather and discover what our connection was. Whereas I've got people in my matching lists who have 20 or 30,000 people in their tree, and I still haven't found the connection. So the size of the tree really doesn't matter. People have a lot of people in their tree or a few people in their tree, but if it's the right people in their tree that gives you the information you need to be able to make that connection, that's all that matters. Those people with public trees may be willing to collaborate or not. One of the things that we have to come to grips with is that everybody does DNA testing for their own reasons. And some people do it just for the ethnicity results, and we haven't yet, and by we, I mean all of us as a genealogy community, haven't yet teased them into this idea that there is more to be had. And maybe by reaching out to them, we can encourage them to look more into their family history beyond just some of those ethnicity results. So people with public trees are one group of one category. The next category is going to be those with private trees. Now you might notice something here as I go through private trees. Private trees are people who have a lot of people in their tree or a few people in their tree. And again, the size of the tree doesn't matter. What matters is if they have the right people in their tree that happen to connect with the right people in your tree. People with private trees might be willing to collaborate or not, but we don't know that until we reach out to them, until we make an effort to contact them and communicate with them. Just because a tree is public or private does not mean that that person is willing to collaborate or not. And so that's, I think, an important reminder for all of us that we need to just be willing to reach out to these people in either circumstance. Now, the third category of people is one that's a little bit more obscure, and it's one that's a little bit more difficult to understand sometimes. And I think Anna's story illustrates, I'm glad she shared that first, it illustrates perfectly one of the scenarios under which somebody has a tree, which was he has a tree. His tree is just not yet online. I assume that means he has software of some kind he uses on his desktop, or maybe it's still in old binders, right? Depending on how long he's been doing his research. So just because somebody has no tree doesn't mean they really have no tree. It just means they might not have a tree online. It could just mean that they haven't attached their tree to their DNA results yet. We have quite a few users who haven't figured out how to do that yet. And so if you click on Review Match, what you may discover is that they actually have 2 or 3 trees. And maybe part of the problem is that they started their family history research by breaking out their ancestry. You know, I've seen a lot of people who do a tree for each grandparent or a tree for each parent. And then when they take the DNA test, it's not real clear to them how they attach those DNA results. Well, the reality is you can only attach your DNA results to one tree. And we do that on purpose because that's supposed to focus this matching process that we have automated in some ways. And so you need to only attach your results to one tree. And some people haven't figured out yet how to merge their trees so that they can attach those trees. So sometimes it's just that they don't have a tree attached, and that makes it look like they have no tree. But when you click Review Match, it's going to show you if they have public trees available. Sometimes it's just like in Anna's situation, they don't actually have a tree online. And in the case of her cousin, it sounds like he didn't know how to get his tree online. And so some people just need a little bit of extra assistance or encouragement to do that. I'm a big fan of the philosophy of Socrates. He said, "Tell me sufficiently why a thing should be done, and I will move heaven and earth to do it." So a lot of times it's just that we haven't motivated them enough to go figure out how to do something. And then, of course, there's this last category of people who have no tree, who really don't know what their biological family tree is. As DNA becomes more and more popular as a research tool for family history, we're seeing a lot of people using DNA as a means to find biological family, whether it's the person who took the test, who was adopted, or who doesn't know who their one branch of their family is, whatever the circumstances. And we need to recognize that we may be the key to them finding out what they need to know. So these are the 3 categories of trees: public trees, private trees, and no trees. And there are ways to communicate with every one of these groups of people, but the bottom line is communicate with them. I think, and Anna, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe you can give us this information. AncestryDNA users are sending messages using the message system on Ancestry.com a lot more than regular users. Is that correct?
Yes, statistically is what we're seeing.
Okay, so lots more communication and collaboration going on here.
Mm-hmm. And we have such an opportunity to help one another. Like my cousin reaching out to me, he helped me, and then I was able to help him by figuring, just encouraging him that somebody cared that he put a tree out there so that we can all benefit from it.
Yeah. So send messages to each other. Also, respond to messages from each other. And if you're not familiar with how the messaging system works, let me just share that with you just really quickly. So here is one of my second cousin matches. And there's this giant green send messages button. And when you click that, what it actually does is it takes you into just the regular Ancestry messaging system. So it allows you to put a subject in and then it allows you to put in a large message, but I'm going to encourage you to use brief messages, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But it uses the Ancestry.com regular Ancestry.com messaging system. So once you send that message, you're actually going to see any responses up here with this little envelope. So if I click on see all messages, you're going to see all of the messages that I have here. And you're going to notice that sometimes I have matches who I've responded to. Sometimes I haven't responded yet. I'm still working on that. I am not an immediate responder. I do respond. It sometimes just takes me a little while. So here is an email that I received from one of my DNA matches and just shared some basic information. I shared some information back with her, and then she has since responded. One of the unique things, however, about DNA messages, if you use that big green DNA send message button, is that in that initial message, you're going to see a link to view the match. So hopefully they've shared enough information in the body of the message that you know that they're talking about DNA. But if you're not sure, there's going to be a little view the match button, and that's going to take you, if you click that, directly out to the matching page for that person, so that so that you don't have to go looking through your DNA matches to find them. So if you're contacting a DNA cousin, always use that big green send message button so that you make sure that you're linking it to your DNA results. Okay. Now, I would encourage you to strongly encourage you to reach out to other members regardless of the status of their family tree. I've seen a lot of things on our message boards and our social media pages where people just say, well, I'm just going to ignore anybody with a private tree or anybody with no tree, and I'm only going to look at the people who have a public tree and then go on my merry way. And that's absolutely your prerogative, but you're missing out and they're missing out. And so reach out to other members, even reach out to members who have a public tree. So I have a cousin who has a public tree. Actually, I have several, and even though I can tell where our shared ancestor might be, sometimes I still want to send them a message, explain to them that I looked at it, that I figured it out. Part of the idea is supporting each other as a community, supporting each other as family, encouraging people. And one of the things that happens very often is we discover that people have more information than is on their tree. I've had cousins who have photos that they just haven't scanned and uploaded to their tree yet. And because I expressed an interest, even though their tree was public and I could see exactly how we were related, because I expressed that interest, they took the time then to go scan those photos and send me copies. So reach out to other members, whether their tree is public, private, or whether they don't have a tree. And I'll share some language with you here in just a minute about how you can do that. Another tip is to always assume the best. Don't vilify each other. Assume that, whatever the circumstances are, that they're the best circumstances, and be kind in your messaging, and maybe be overly kind in your messaging. We're dealing with people, sometimes the person who took the DNA test is an 18 or 19-year-old who is, desperately looking for family information and has very little life experience and sometimes very little education. And sometimes it's a, 80-year-old grandmother who is a little bit afraid of computers and a little bit afraid of technology and maybe even a little bit afraid of what this DNA stuff is going to do. But she's taken this leap of faith and participated in the program because she wants so much to share the information she has and to reach out to others. There's this broad spectrum of people that are involved in the Ancestry DNA program, and we are family, and so we need to figure out how to work with each other and how to communicate with each other via the written word in a way that is kind and encouraging. And so go overboard with that if you need to, hence the capitalization, right? Use your magic words, and that's such a silly phrase. My sister's a third grade teacher, and so sometimes that phrase just pops out of my mouth. But use those magic words of please and thank you. If you want to see what somebody has in their family tree, ask please, don't demand. Ask them for permission, or see if they will help you out. Always be sure to thank people for the time that they take, or for the time that they will take in helping or in sharing that information. And you will be shocked maybe at the doors that just that little bit of kindness will open. And then the last tip here before we dive into some examples is just to be patient. Like I said, I don't respond to every message I receive immediately. Maybe I should, but I don't. And so sometimes it takes me a little while. As a matter of fact, I've got one message I'm starting to feel guilty about. I think it's been sitting there for almost 2 weeks now. I was going to look at something. I was going to look something up for her, and then I looked it up and realized I had some inaccurate information. And so I did some research, and then it just got put on the back burner. And so I haven't responded yet. So don't keep sending messages or disregard them just because they don't respond right away. Not everybody, as shocking as this sounds, not everybody is on Ancestry.com every single day. Some people only have limited time to work on their family history. And so just be patient with each other. Now, if you haven't heard from somebody in 3 or 4 weeks, you can send a follow-up message. And again, be kind, and assume the best, but be patient with each other as well. So let's just talk about a couple of examples. And Anna, feel free to jump in here if you have anything to add or any different way that you word things. I'm sharing these with you in the hope that you'll just see. What I've done is I just take these I've created templates essentially for different scenarios under which I would communicate with people. And that way I just keep those in, I use OneNote. I can just copy and paste those into the message and adjust it how I need to, but I don't have to rewrite the message every single time. So it allows me to send several messages out in quick succession to different users. And so I'm willing to share that with you, and as you're watching this video on replay later, you're welcome to hit pause and do a screenshot or copy it, whatever. Feel free to use whatever information out of these templates you need to. So if somebody has no tree, here is one of the ways I might word that message. Hi, cousin. According to AncestryDNA, we are likely third cousins. So I've pointed out what I think the relationship is. I'd love to learn exactly how we are related and who our common ancestors might be, but it looks like you haven't yet attached a family tree to your DNA results. If you are looking for biological family, remember that's one of the reasons why people might not have a tree online, I would love to help you in any way I can. If you have a family tree and are unsure of how to connect it to your results, again, one of the reasons it says people have no tree is because they haven't figured out how to connect it. Let me know and I'm happy to help. This will help you connect with a lot of other cousins as well. One of the things I've learned is that if people believe or understand that there's something in it for them as well, they're also going to be a little bit more motivated. And that's true of all of us. We all fall into that trap. And so if I assume that of those I'm communicating with, I'm going to do whatever I can to connect that. Now, one of the things that Anna brought up earlier is, are there helps available that we can direct people to? So for example, if they don't know how to connect a tree to their results, how do we help them figure that out, right? And so here on Ancestry.com, there's a little Get Help button. If you click that, it's going to take you to our learning center, our knowledge base, where we have all the answers. We have the answers to all the questions, right? And so if I just type in AncestryDNA, and what keywords would I search? Link results, link test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There you go, AncestryDNA, and I did link test. And the very first article that comes up is how to attach an AncestryDNA test results to an Ancestry member tree. And so you could then just copy this URL and paste it in a message to your match to explain so they can come here and go through the steps. Or you can email it directly to them if they've shared their email address with you. Again, that's under Get Help. And if you just type in the keywords here, about what you're trying to do, you're almost always going to find an article that explains that. So don't give them that link first, right? Don't share too much information with them in this initial contact. Sometimes too much information scares people away. I always try to keep this initial message as brief as possible. And so I just, say, if you want to know how to connect the results, I'll share that with you. Again, I'm trying to get them to respond to me, to start a dialogue. I'm not trying to just download information to them. Okay. The next circumstance is people who have a private tree, but there is no shared ancestor hint. So I can't see their tree. I can't see that there's any connection in our trees based on the Ancestry.com tree system. And so I'm going to send them a message, again, trying to spark their interest in communicating with me. So here's the message I use. Hi, cousin. According to AncestryDNA, we're likely third cousins. I'd love to learn exactly how we're related and who our common ancestors might be. That might sound familiar. I start almost all of my messages the same way. Then I go on to say, but it looks like your tree is private, which means I can't compare any of the information in our trees. Now, I say it that way because not everybody understands what it means to have a public or a private tree. They may have a private tree and not even know their tree is private because they're not familiar with how that works. And so I give them that information in that way just to kind of soft pedal it a little bit. And then I say, if you wouldn't mind sharing your tree with me for a couple of weeks, I'd love to help figure it out. I put that little caveat in there of for a couple of weeks because I don't want people to feel like they're inviting a total stranger to their family tree with, and now I'm going to have indefinite access to it. They can actually turn off, so they can turn sharing on, invite me to view their tree, and then you can revoke that access. And I encourage people to do that. As a matter of fact, I don't need to have indefinite access to somebody else's tree if they have chosen to keep it private. And so I put that phrase in there to soften it a little bit and to help people recognize that I'm not trying to steal all the data or whatever their perception might be. I just want to view the tree to figure out how we might be related. And then again, offer to help. At the end, I just say, if you're not sure how to do that, referring to how to share your tree, please let me know, and I'm happy to help out. Again, on Ancestry.com, if you just come in here and type tree sharing, there's going to be a link that explains exactly how to share your tree with friends and family. And you can send that link in a subsequent message to this person to explain to them how to share a tree. Remember, we're trying to start a dialogue with people. We're not trying to inundate them with too much information up front. We're looking to see who is interested in collaborating, not trying to force information out of people. So the next scenario is those who have a private tree but have a shared ancestor hint. Again, hi cousin, according to AncestryDNA, this is how we're related. It looks like, now this is going to be a little bit differently worded, it looks like Ancestry may have figured out who our common ancestors might be, but it looks like your tree is private, which means I can't see that information. Would you be willing to let me know who the shared ancestor hint refers to? And then I thank them. So I'm not asking for access to their tree. I'm just asking them, again, trying to start a dialogue, who that shared ancestor hint shows up as in their tree. Now, of course, the hope is if they respond and say, oh, it looks like this is the shared ancestor hint, that then becomes an invitation to me to turn around and say, oh, that's awesome. I'd love to learn more about these people. Would you mind sharing your tree with me for a couple of weeks so that I can see what information you have? My tree's public. You're welcome to look through my tree and see if you have any additional information. So you're trying to just start a dialogue, not demand access to everything they have. Next scenario is those who have a public tree but no hint. Again, a brief message explaining how I think we're related. I'd love to learn exactly how we might be related, who those common ancestors are. And then I show them that I've put in some effort, right? I've looked at common surnames and common locations in our tree and see a few possibilities for a connection. Maybe we have a common surname. More likely or more a better avenue for success is going to be some of those common locations. If I've got family who is living in a specific county in New Jersey during the 1700s, I know that it's probably going to be through my Lippincott line, even if they don't have any Lippincotts in their tree, because my family in that area was very prolific, and to this day remain in that area, a lot of them. So if I've got those locations in my tree, I have some ideas about where our connection might be. And then I invite them to work with me to figure it out. Sometimes, well, almost in every circumstance, 2 heads are better than 1. And if you can get 3 or 4 cousins, if you've got 5 or 6 matches who have family in that same area, maybe you send a similar message to each of them, and maybe in subsequent conversations you explain that you've got these other 4 matches who have family in that area, and ask them if they have those matches on their list as well. Because if you end up creating your own little clusters of cousins, you can all work together to figure out some of those relationships a little bit easier. The final scenario is those public trees where there is a shared ancestor hint. And these are probably the cousins that we're the least likely to reach out to, and yet they're probably going to be the cousins who, are going to give you some of the best success or some of the most interesting relationships. It's those public trees where there's a shared ancestor hint. You can see their tree, you can see what the connection is. Why on earth would you need to send them a message, right? You don't need them. Well, the reality is that you might. Again, they might have information they haven't put online yet. You might have information to help them, and you may find that you help out 3 or 4 people to every 1 person that gives you information. But either way, it's this whole idea of a genealogy community. It's the idea of family. And so here's the message that I send. It just says, according to Ancestry.com, our shared ancestors are John Smith and Mary Williams, or whoever they are, right? I don't know a lot about the other children of this couple. I would love to learn more. I also have some information I'd be happy to share. I look forward to hearing from you. So the idea is that we're making a connection with somebody, even though we know what that likely connection is, and we're trying to see if there's additional information that we can share with one another. And maybe it's just the fact that we share more information about that couple and their children and grandchildren. Or maybe we've now just discovered a cousin who is as passionate about family history as we are, and they can help us do more research on John Smith's parents and grandparents. And so now we have somebody to work with as we climb back up our family tree. Hopefully that's given you some ideas about ways to contact each other, some ways to collaborate with each other. Anna, do you have anything you want to add? Is there any last final words of wisdom?
Just be positive about your experience, and it might not be when and how you want, but the potential and power is there to make these connections and to go forth and finding a little bit more out about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I love that idea. Anna's been using that phrase a lot lately about finding out more about your story. And really, excuse me, really it is our story. It's our story as individuals. It's our story as families. And as Anna shared at the beginning, sometimes those treasures in families get passed down through one particular branch of the family, and in just 2 or 3 generations, if you saw Judy Russell's Roots Tech Talk, you know about stuff getting lost in 3 generations. You may find that you don't even know that a family Bible exists, or that a photograph of your great-grandfather exists. And these are the relationships and the connections where we are going to make those discoveries about our story. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. I want to thank Anna Swayne for joining me today, and have fun climbing your family tree.